Radio.
Welcome to Making Waves, real stories, real leaders, and the forces shaping global shipping. I'm Maya Rubin, and today we're rewinding to one of ZIM's boldest moves, going public in the middle of a global crisis. With me is Xavier Destriau, ZIM's Chief Financial Officer since 2018. With more than 20 years in global finance at giants like CMA, CGM, and Honeywell, Xavier brought a steady hand to one of the most daring IPOs in recent memory. Let's dive in. Xavier, you've worked in France, the UK, Spain, Switzerland, and Asia. What shaped your global approach to finance before joining ZIM?
Look, I think, first of all, there are two main components. The first one is the industry we're in, and our industry is a global industry. And I've always evolved in a global industry. And I think it's good when you work in a global industry to meet people that you are not familiar with. So get out of your comfort zone, go explore. And this is what I intended to do from a professional perspective. Lucky enough, my wife has the same view as well. So we've been together traveling quite extensively the world, as you mentioned, and ended up in Israel in 2018.
Wow. So I was going to ask, what brought you to Israel and what surprised you most about working here? So I understand what brought you here. What surprised you and your wife most about Israel? That's interesting.
Look, I think when you come to a place where you do not belong initially, you need to come with open eyes, with little expectations, and be ready for whatever's coming at you. I think, and if I remember correctly, 2 weeks after I arrived in Israel, I had my first session with the chairman of the company, Mr. Saroussi, and he asked me, so you've been here for 2 weeks, is it living up to your expectations? How are things? How is it going? And I said to him, I realized something coming in Israel that I was not expecting, is that if I want to talk to someone, I'd rather call him on WhatsApp than knock in his office and go talk physically to that person. Because here in Israel, everybody seems to be hooked to the phone, and the phone takes priority over everything. And so it was, maybe a little bit casual as a conversation, but he explained to me as to why. And he said to me, the reason why Israel always pick up the phone, even if they are in the middle of a conversation, is because they don't want to end up missing something. So they feel that if they don't pick up the phone, maybe it was very important, maybe there was a deal to be made, and by not taking the phone, they would potentially miss it. And I found it very interesting because I think this is part of the culture of Israeli to try to dare to always look forward. And that gave me my first lesson after 2 weeks.
That's interesting. So it's not like that in France or other places that you've lived. People are not in the phone. It's so surprising for me to hear. I cannot imagine walking in the street and seeing people's eyes and not looking at the phones.
Well, WhatsApp, as far as I'm concerned, I was not using it before arriving to Israel.
Yeah,
WhatsApp, existed, but I was just not using it. Just maybe friends and family.
Yeah.
And that was it. So I started receiving calls on WhatsApp, and I was a little bit lost at the very beginning. But no, it's not. Was not the same where I came from.
You once found a surprising personal connection to ZIM's history. Can you share that moment?
Yes, indeed. It was on my way down to the parking lot, going out of the elevator. I just stand in front of a picture of a ship, and an old ship, apparently. It was not a container vessel. It was a passenger ship. And I look down and I look at the name of the ship, and it was written very next to the name, the place where the ship was built. And the ship was the ZIM Shalom, and that ship was built in the Chantier de l'Atlantique in Saint-Nazaire. That's where I'm born.
Oh, wow.
And that is exactly where precisely where my father worked as a naval engineer for his entire life. So I felt, look, I've been here for, I don't know, a few weeks, maybe it was, by the time I realized. And it ended up that ZIM already was, having dealings with the company of my father, even before I was thinking about maritime industry. So maybe there is no coincidence, and I'm here for a reason.
Yes, definitely. I believe in that. ZIM went public in January 2021, deep in the COVID-19 crisis. How did you know that the timing was right?
I didn't know. You can never know. You can only maybe see windows of opportunities, and then dive into those and do as much as you can to make sure that at the end of the day you get to the finish line. ZIM as a company has tried on many occasions to list itself. I think the first attempt was in 2008. And there had been quite a few in between 2008 and the successful one in 2021. So look, we did not really know whether we would be successful. What we could say at the time, and it was July 2020, when I was on vacation, by the way, at the time, and our CEO, Eddie Glickman, gives me a phone call and says, I think we should prepare ourselves for an IPO. And I said, are you sure? Because the timing, we were, as you said, we were just after the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis that erupted, I think, if my memory serves me well, March 2021. Yes. And from a consequences perspective for the company, for the industry to start with, it was a collapse in the volume. Nobody was going to work in Asia. There was a stop in global consumption because of everybody. The world stopped. Really, let's remember. Yes. The world stopped. So for us, it meant no more goods to move and to move between Asia to the US or to the trades where we operated. Up until there was something else that happened, and indeed it was the fact that people stayed at home and ended up having nothing much to do at home, and took that opportunity to refurbish their own home, to do some work in their own living room and so on. So it boosted the e-commerce trade quite significantly from one day to the other. And ZIM as a company was very quick in identifying this new trend, and we opened a new line that was dedicated to this fast-moving cargo, and was very successful. So we saw that the situation was evolving, that put to the positive, at least for the industry. And you always want to go and try to go public when you're on your way up, not when you're on your way down in terms of the cycles.
Right.
So it was a beginning of a new cycle, and I think it is not me who identified that. I must be very humble here and give the credit to my CEO, because he's the one who gave me a phone call. Again, I was on vacation somewhere in Brittany, lying in the beach.
Well, at least it was a good call that came and did good. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Why list on the New York Stock Exchange rather than in Tel Aviv?
When you ask yourself where to list, you want to maximize the chances of success. And what you want to achieve first is making sure that people that do not know the company, necessarily investors, will want to buy the shares, so will subscribe to the offering. So that's one. Second, you want also to make sure that once you've listed, hopefully successfully, that you have liquidity of your shares, that people will continue to buy and sell, that people would not feel that they get stuck because there is no liquid market behind it. So, and then maybe ideally also what you would want is to go to a place where you have peers so that people can benchmark your performance against some of your competitors. So that is a difficult thing to do for a shipping industry, because there are not so many players around, and the ones mostly are in Europe, some in Asia, and there are none in Israel but us. So if we had looked at the TASE or the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, we would have been one of a kind in terms of company. That's one. Second, in terms of depth of investor base, clearly we felt that with our size, also the fact that we are a global company, mostly addressing trades that are not so relevant to Israel. We are very big on Asia to the US. The US being our main market in terms of customer base. It makes sense. It made sense once we dismissed a little bit the idea to list in Tel Aviv because of our size, because of our industry, because of the depth of the market. Then what was left was Europe, maybe London or Hong Kong, and New York. Europe was already a little bit crowded in a way from that perspective with the European players, and we didn't feel we wanted to be sitting next to those. Was maybe not the best situation for us. In Asia, there are only Asian players, so us being an Israeli in Asia, maybe not so good. And clearly the US and the relationship and the strong ties between Israel and the US made it, I think, a natural go-to market.
Definitely. Turned out that way. ZIM posted record profits in 2021 and 2022. What made that performance possible?
Well, first of all, clearly our CEO was not too wrong in July 2020, not only because we managed to list 6 months later in January 2021, but yes, the trend continued positively for the following 2 years, so 2021, 2022 were record years for the industry. Even maybe more profitable if we look at the margin levels for ZIM than it was for some of our competitors. And I think it had to do with a few things. First of all, we were very exposed to the US market, and that was a market that boosted very significantly during the COVID eras. We were also very, in terms of strategy of the company, we were bold enough to promote a spot market as opposed to lock ourselves in long-term contract that provide you regularity of a volume, but potentially at prices that you don't control. So when the market is up, then you earn less at the end of the day. So that was also, I think, one of the explanation. And lastly, also, as I mentioned earlier on, the fact that we were very quick to react to changing market conditions, opening lines, closing lines, reallocating our capacity where it was more profitable, also contributed clearly to making those 2 years fantastic years for the company. And those years that were fantastic for the company were used thereafter in terms of what it allowed us to do in order to get to where we are today. And maybe we'll come to that in a later question.
Definitely. How did going public change ZIM's internal financial culture?
When you go public, from all of a sudden, you become a company that only few maybe know, especially because we are not, a B2C type of industry. We are B2B, so the end customer, when you buy your, your sneakers, you don't necessarily know that they've been brought in from China by ZIM. You know that you bought them, from Adidas, but you don't necessarily know how they ended up in the shelves where you end up buying those sneakers. So the ZIM as a name, I think, was really well known in Israel because also of the past and all the history of the company. Outside of Israel, maybe not so much. So when you list, especially in New York, especially at the time and the very specific timing of 2021, and when you have the trajectory in terms of share price that we had for the 2 years thereafter, we were the second best IPO in 2021 in the New York Stock Exchange. So it said something as well. So there was a lot of spotlight on ZIM at this point in time. Second, when you are listed, you are subject to a lot of new rules that you need to abide by in terms of the New York Stock Exchange regulation, the SEC. You need to, I'm going to use, I'm sorry, a lot of names, but Sarbanes-Oxley compliance in terms of environment of control. Your auditors don't not only sign on your accounts, but they also sign on the adequacy of your environment of control to make sure that your processes are under control. So there's a lot of additional pressure under the financial organization to make sure that we are watertight at the end of the day, and that we don't end up disclosing to the market, because this is what we do on a quarterly basis, financial results that would end up being not correct. So that's one. I think secondly, what it changes is from all of a sudden you need to interact to a vast, diverse shareholder base. When you are a private company, you know your shareholders, you know who to talk to, you have maybe ongoing communication with the big ones. When you are a listed company, and I think I talked a little bit about that in the beginning, you want your share to be liquid, so you want always to have a buyer when there is a seller, and it's down to you, to the company, to always feed the market with information to attract investors. So you need to tell the story of what you've done, what you intend to do next, and always prepare and entertain the liquidity of the share. Not to mention that you also want the share to appreciate, to create value for your shareholders. So there is a lot more in terms of relationship and communication vis-a-vis the company and the investor community and the shareholder community.
Understand. If you had to do it all again, what would you change?
I would do it sooner.
Really?
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, like I said, we need to find an opportunity, a window of opportunity. But as far as I'm concerned, maybe another story. When I came to the company back in 2018, Eli Glickman had arrived as the CEO 6 months before me. I think in July 2017 he arrived, and he was looking for his CFO. And I don't think when he recruited me, that he saw in me the potential to take the company public. Because at that time, back in 2018, the company was in a very different situation. The industry was in a different situation. The company was in a different situation as well. There was a looming debt that needed to be refinanced before 2023. And this is what he wanted me to do first, because this is something that I had done before in my previous company. So that's the expertise that I think he liked in me when he brought me
hired
in.
you for.
Yes. That's the part of my resume that appealed to him the most. I'm very happy that it was completely useless at the end of the day, and that we ended up doing the IPO, which also from a CFO perspective is once in a lifetime success.
That's great. Well, just trusting the moment, huh? Just trusting the moment.
Yeah.
And being with a positive attitude. And
I think you have to be. I mean, in our industry, you have to be. There are so many things that you don't control, so you need to be okay with not being able to control. It's a little bit like being a surfer. You don't know what the waves will bring you, but you need to surf each and every one of them, the big ones and the small ones. And that's what we do, I think, on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's nice. With inflation, interest rate shifts, and geopolitical uncertainty, how do you plan in today's environment? Well, it's kind of continues what we were talking, that you just have to be ready.
Correct. I mean, it's very difficult to plan, or you plan for a scenario and something else happens. So does that make planning irrelevant? I don't think so. Because the way I see it, we always need to try to plan ahead. We will most of the times always be wrong, but at least the process of getting into planning, getting into budgeting, getting into forecasting, it allows us to always be on top of our game, to know precisely what needs to be changed based on a parameter that may evolve differently from what we initially planned for, and therefore react and adapt very quickly to changing market conditions. So for me, the outcome is not that relevant. The process is what matters.
Right. That's nice. It's like the journey and the destination.
In a way.
It's the journey, yeah.
Absolutely.
As supply chains shift from China to Southeast Asia, how is ZIM adopting? I know you mentioned that there's a lot of things that change and shift in the world. If you want, you can talk about this one or give another example.
No. Yes, I mean, I think you're correct that if we look at the trade patterns in our industry, I mean, there are some big ones that last for long, and there are some smaller ones that maybe change on a regular basis. But if we look at the trades that are mostly relevant for ZIM, and we talked about Asia to the US. When we say Asia, it's largely China to the US, and then the neighboring countries, Vietnam, Thailand, South Korea, Japan, Cambodia, Malaysia, Indonesia. Those countries are satellites, a country to China. And what we've seen indeed over the past few years is a tendency of decoupling the U.S. economy and the Chinese economy. So what we see today, very visually, with Trump being very vocal about putting tariffs here and there, withdrawing, putting them back, is in a way the translation of this momentum that was started even before him, by the way, of trying to decouple a little bit China and the US. The two countries were a little bit maybe too intermingled. So if you look at our customers, the big brands and the big names in the US, yes, they could not do without China. So they always were sourcing mostly from China. But over the past decade, they've been developing the China plus one type of strategy, which was China and another Southeast Asia country. So this benefited, of course, to those places, Thailand, Korea, Vietnam, that we talked about. And clearly, as far as we're concerned, we anticipated to the best of our abilities, but also mostly reacted, as I was saying earlier on, when we need to see the changing patterns and react fast. So we entered those countries quite heavily, and Vietnam, I think, is a very good example, growing our footprint there in order to make sure that we would capture the cargo that was just moving from China in terms of origin to Vietnam. Another thing which is maybe in the same, area of focus is Latin America. Latin America is a place today which is, in terms of market growth potential, is big. It's huge. We also see China doing the same, as they have potentially less export to the US. They need to find other places to sell their goods. Europe is one, but we are not that present in Europe. South America is another one. So this is also those type of macro trend that we need to identify and position ourselves early enough to make sure that we can capture future growth potentials.
I understand. You've helped shape ZIM's sustainability strategy. Is it a cost or business advantage?
It's both. It starts as a cost, and it is very often the case in our industry. We start by spending money, and ultimately we get return on that money.
Right.
But today, nowadays, and there is an increasing focus on getting greener, on making sure that this industry does and takes its share of the burden to decarbonize this planet at the end of the day. And we have ZIM, I think, done a lot of things in this respect. And I was mentioning that the IPO and the years that followed allowed us to prepare to where we are today. And this is precisely, I think, in this area that we invested a lot, and that we changed the profiling of the company quite meaningfully. So between 2021-22, we ordered 46 brand new vessels, brand new ships, just like the one I can see you have a model just behind you. So we ordered the 46 brand new ships of those types, except that maybe in fact we would need to have another one, because you don't have the ZIM LNG, which is the new engines that we've invested in quite heavily. So all the new vessels or most of the new capacity that we've ordered, that have been delivered to us over the past 2 years, 23 and 24, is LNG powered, which contributes to decarbonize our industry, because running a ship on LNG is far more carbon friendly than running a ship on the traditional diesel. So we've been quite active on that front, and which propelled us in terms of company at the top league in terms of the vessel operators and liner company that serve the US. We are the only company today serving the US market with 2 services that are fully LNG powered. So why did I say that? First, it is a cost. It is a cost because it is an investment.
Of course.
Then you also need to make sure that you source this new fuel and you guarantee access to supply. So you need to invest again. Your customers, at the end of the day, will they want to pay for it? Initially, we thought they would, but in the current context, and maybe in the US also with the new administration that is maybe not that eco-friendly than the prior one,
right?
It becomes a little bit more of a struggle to earn a premium on our means of transportation,
right,
because we provide a greener avenue. But I think at some point in time it will happen, because of the regulator or because of the end customer. Your kids, I don't know whether you do have kids. I don't have kids. I have nephews. They are always making decisions based on, okay, those guys, they are doing what they are meant to be doing, or they're not meant to be doing, and I blacklist. Those generations of tomorrow will be the ones deciding who to work with.
Definitely,
and we will be best positioned.
Yeah, and I think eventually it's worth the investment, and it'll be much. I mean, it'll bring back itself and much more.
Absolutely.
What's the biggest leadership lesson you've learned as CFO, especially during crisis?
Look, I think you always...
you can give us something juicy too.
No, I mean, I don't know if I have a specific example in mind, but, I think we always need to be very humble. Humility, even though we have 20 years of experience, I think you said that I have, and I counted now in back of my head, I do have 20 years of experience in this industry. I think there are always things that you learn, and making sure that you are not or you stop listening to younger people, to people that have different type of experience or expertise coming in and looking at things the way you do things and telling you, oh, are you sure? Maybe you could do it a bit differently. And I think this is what for me is key and essential, is to always make sure that even though you need to be confident in what you do, accept the fact that there will be occasions, and quite a few of them, where you will be wrong and others will be right, and allowing them to voice their concern is key and critical.
That's very nice. It's very smart. Being humble is being. I think it goes together. Looking ahead, what's your vision for ZIM in the next 5 to 10 years?
Look, I think this company is very well positioned in our space. We are in the specific. We have a specific size. We are not as big as the big guys. We are not as small as the small regional guys. And we managed, I think, over the past 7-8 years since Eli came on board in 2017, and we changed a lot of things in the company to leverage our size, because in our industry, normally, scale matters, size matters, because we are largely commodity-based type of industry. What you do, you need to reduce cost. In order to reduce cost, you need to scale up and generate economies of scales. So it is not an easy thing to do, to be efficient when you don't have the critical size. And I think we leveraged the benefit of our smaller size, which allows all the agility that we talked about, right, that maybe is more difficult for a bigger organization, and we managed to get the size that we need in order to be relevant and to be able to scale up. So we now have found our place, I think, in the market, and not only do we provide good service and we have good support from our customers, but more importantly, maybe because this is a very capital-intensive industry, we do it profitably, and that's the idea. If you want to give a good service and be able to continue to give that good service for a long period of time, you need to be able to generate profit to reinvest, and that ability to reinvest, we have it now, and that gives me confidence that in the next 10, 5, 15, 50 years, ZIM will still be flying high colors and will continue to grow on its current journey.
Sounds fantastic, and that's a good way to end. But I do have to ask you, so how has it been, the journey here for your wife and you, for your family here in Israel? And what do you enjoy the most? You or her? I don't know. You decide.
Look, I mean, I think I enjoy, and what I like is what I hate the most, maybe as well. It's it's
usually like that with people too.
No. But you're right. But this is what I'm talking about. The weather, first of all, the weather is fantastic, and people tell me that in Europe I should be bothered with the heat and the sunshine. I'm not. My office, I think, is the hottest one there is in the office in Haifa, because the air conditioning is rarely on. Yes. I feel okay with the heat. But from the interaction with people, sometimes, and it shocked me a little bit when I arrived, people speak their mind, and don't go around in trying to be nice, or if they have something to tell you, they will tell you up front. Sometimes it's a little bit discomforting, to be frank, because you don't expect it, even in a meeting, you have everybody speak their mind. It's difficult, but at least at the end of the day, you get what you see. Yeah. And that's, I think, very, very nice. And I miss it when I go back to Europe every once in a while, and I see all the politics of, you need to may have a meeting before the meeting to make sure everybody's aligned and people do not speak up their mind. I think Dudu, you had Dudu Arbel, I think, in one of the sessions, explained it to me very, very nicely once. He said to me, that's very easy to understand, the way meetings go in Israel. You have 10 people in the room, you have 11 opinions.
At least. Xavier, thank you for taking us inside one of the boldest IPO stories in global shipping. From personal legacy to public markets, your journey reflects how ZIM turns volatility into value. You've been listening to Making Waves, real stories, real leaders, and the forces shaping global shipping. If you enjoyed this episode, follow, rate, and share the podcast. It helps us reach more listeners and keep the stories coming. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.